Let's take a moment to turn our attention within, sitting up straight, closing our eyes, giving our awareness to the body and to the breath. Take a moment to honor this time as a time for spiritual study and reflection. And take a moment to honor where you are, your body as a temple of spirit, as an expression of the infinite consciousness, the divine. We're coming together today in the spirit of practicing Kriya Yoga, developing greater inspiration on our path. And so we'll take a moment to honor and acknowledge the teacher representatives of this tradition, which have made it possible for us to be here. Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahasaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Roy Eugene Davis. And as you sit quietly with your attention turned within, honor and acknowledge that field of clarity, that field of wisdom and grace, which our spiritual teachers represent and that they embodied within their life. And that field is accessible to us because it is our deepest nature. So honor and acknowledge that field within your body and around you. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and be present for our May Kriya Yoga Sunday service. All right. Well, welcome everyone. It's good to see familiar faces again and some new ones. Even though it's only been a month, it seems like a long time to me. We had a good retreat in Asheville, North Carolina. I think a few of you were there. And it was fascinating because while I was there, I recognized that people came from about 9 or 10 different states, and only one of them was actually from Asheville. So, but it was good. I believe we had about 9 new initiates during that session. And we're getting ready for our June stay-at-home retreat, the solstice retreat. So if you don't know about that and you're interested, you can email me and we can give you some more information about that. And then, of course, we have another retreat in July in Rochester, New York, at the Assisi Institute with Isha Das and Swami Nirvanananda. So those are some of the announcements. So today we're going to follow the same setup that we always do. We're going to review some Kriya Yoga philosophy. And once again, we're going to look at the Bhagavad Gita for inspiration. And then we'll take some time to meditate together at the conclusion. So let's get started. I had a lot I wanted to talk about today, and it's always hard to condense these things into half-hour and 45-minute talks. So I'm going to do my best. The chapter that I was looking at in the Bhagavad Gita was the second to last chapter, which is The Yoga of Discernment of the Three Kinds of Faith. And this inspiration came to me last night after I watched a documentary on Anandamayi Ma. Now, I don't know why this particular inspiration came to me after watching that, but it did. And it deals with faith. I began to consider, what is one of the biggest obstacles that we have on our spiritual path? And I began to think about Anandamayi Ma, Mr. Davis, Roy Eugene Davis, Paramahansa Yogananda, Ramana Maharshi. I began to think about a lot of these spiritual teachers that have provided inspiration to me and that have been a beacon of light to so many people in the world. And I thought about it, and I recognized that these people lived in the world just like we do. They have existed during times of conflict, during times of disease, during times of unrest. They've existed during times of prosperity. And yet they were able to maintain a state of self-realization. They were able to experience and connect to an infinite field of consciousness that many of us call divine. And they were able to do it in times very similar to the times that we're living in. And as I watched that documentary on Anandamayi Ma, she was essentially a peasant girl, mostly illiterate from what I could gather from the documentary. She was married, but of course her husband sort of appreciated the spiritual stature. And so their relationship was not a physical relationship, but she had a relationship and she had duties in the world. She interacted with all kinds of people, and she was able to maintain that state of clarity, that state of self-realization. Ramana Maharshi did the same thing. Paramahansa Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, the teachers within our lineage have also been able to do this. And I just started wondering, what's the problem then? Why is it that they were able to do this, yet so many people struggle with feeling spiritual clarity, spiritual support, and spiritual wisdom? And then that sent me down a rabbit hole of recognizing the purpose of our imagination, the purpose of our minds, how we think about things, how we feel things. And then, of course, I started reflecting upon astrology. So as you can tell, my mind went all over the place as I was contemplating this. And why did it go to astrology? Because having served as an astrologer for many years and an astrological teacher, one thing that I've recognized is that we are all unique expressions of this one infinite consciousness. We all have our own ways of seeing the world, of perceiving the world, of feeling the world. Oftentimes that can be attributed to how we were raised and the conditioning that we have. But that's very important, because the way we see the world is based on our conditioning. And the way Anandamayi Ma saw the world, Yogananda saw the world, Sri Yukteswar saw the world, that was also based on their conditioning. And while people like Anandamayi Ma and Ramana Maharshi, they had these early experiences that it's easy to write them off as something special and say that we cannot achieve that, we do have other people that through discipline and through practice have been able to recognize and realize what they realized. And that is why we have Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga, Kriya means action. So it's the activities that we take to realize ourself, to realize our connection to the infinite, to realize our own God consciousness. And that is why we're here. We're meant to do that. And so really the practice of Kriya Yoga is to overcome or rise above that conditioning, which makes us feel and believe that we are just a limited small being. And Roy would often say one of the biggest obstacles that we have to being awake is simply giving too much attention to the small sense of self, to define ourselves as a limited, provincial, small-minded being. And so all this came together in my mind, and it became clear that part of our work, aside from meditating every day and practicing the yamas and niyamas, that's the support. But our work is in every moment using our God-given capacity for choice and imagination to feel our way into a self-realized state. And often we make all kinds of excuses as to why we can't experience peace or clarity or a state of self-realization. But we have to remember that they're just excuses, because there are other people in the world who have been able to go through what we go through, live in the culture that we live in. And you can say that it's different now. Well, it's not really different now. The same old stuff's been going on repeatedly for hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds and thousands of years. There have been tyrants. There have been wars. There have been plagues. There have been jerks running the country. There have been all kinds of things like that. And it's happened again and again and again. It was going on when Yogananda was around. It was going on when Ramana Maharshi was around. It was going on before that, Lahiri Mahasaya's time, and so on. So we can't say that that's the reason why we're not self-realized. And this is coming out harsher than I intended it to. But what I'd like to encourage you to do is to certainly be engaged in your meditation practice daily. But if you are serious about your spiritual growth, and you're not just kind of being a tease about it, if you're serious about it, then you have to ask yourself, what thoughts, how do I feel? What is my conditioning that prevents me from accepting self-realization, God realization, and greater peace? How do you feel throughout the day? You know, one of my habits is I tend to be very sort of pessimistic. You know, anytime someone throws an idea out at me, my first response is always, I bet that's going to work out. Because my first response is always like to see the difficulty in the situation. That's part of my habit that I had to overcome. I had to take a look at that and recognize when I started to bring in that kind of pessimism and a little bit of sarcasm, which is not useful for anybody. I had to look at it and say, well, do I really want to continue feeling that way? And then I had to make the choice to be uncomfortable for a long time, to try to feel different, to be more supportive of people, to actually feel and project an energy of, well, I hope that works out for you. I'm glad if that works out for you, really, rather than a sense of depletion and kind of like the life is getting sucked out of you, having more of a feeling of fullness, like I really wish you the best in that endeavor. I had to learn to do that. Another issue that I had was I very often suffered from depression, and that colors how you see things. And I had to find a way to ask myself every day when I would wake up and I would feel sort of, I would be able to find every single reason as to why I could be depressed, whether it's a personal reason or a political reason or an ecological reason or a cultural reason or you name it. I could find a reason. I had to decide, of course, there are all these reasons out there for me to feel this way. But what I'm going to try to do today, and I'm not going to try, I'm going to do it. I'm going to begin to imagine, what would it feel like if I felt satisfied, full, if I felt grateful, if I felt full of life and opportunity. That didn't change the world. There were still all kinds of difficulties, but it changed the way I saw the world, and it changed the way I was able to perceive and interact with the world. And that kind of energy that developed from that use of imagination allowed me to go deeper into meditation, because I was able to let go of all of these difficult states, all these difficult inner conditions, which removed all the excuses for me to feel like a self-realized person we imagine them to feel like. You know, when you see pictures of Ramana Maharshi and you see that look on his face, I mean, to me, every time I walk in the room, and I have a few of his pictures all over the place, as soon as I see that picture, something inside just dissolves and melts in a happy way. And I feel great clarity. When I see Roy's picture, the same thing happens. I've talked about this before. I have 2 bedrooms, one where I read and one where I sleep. And I just always chuckle when I look at my bedside and I see what's there. The holy science, Shiva Puri Baba's Long Pilgrimage, Mr. Davis's The Eternal Way. What else do I have there? I've got a few commentaries on the Yoga Sutras. I see those things and I recognize that that's kind of what I'm feeding my mind at night and when I sit down to read. And when I read what they're describing, what teachings are in that book, if I can give myself permission to accept that they are true, I feel lighter, freer, clearer, more self-realized. What happened there? I just let myself do it. I gave myself permission to do it. Okay, so this is the hard part. I think this is one of the challenging things about the situation of developing self-realization. And I use the word challenging because I know I told you before, another mentor I have, I was doing something difficult and I complained about it, said it was hard. And he looked at me and he stopped and he said, "This is not hard. I suspect you've experienced hard things in your life, and this is not one of them. This is challenging." So this process is a challenging process, but it's what's required. And I bring up this idea of excuses because, as I mentioned, with all the saints and the sages that we look to for inspiration, they were human beings too. They had to interact with difficult personalities. They had to observe a world in ecological strife. They were there, just like they're here now. But internally, inside, they were clear and happy and engaged in a state of self-realization. So this is a call to let go of your reasons that you think you can't be self-realized right now. To let go of your reasons that you think you can't be content right now. To let go of whatever conditioning is preventing you from being able to turn within and experience the state of expansiveness. It is there for you now. It is here. It is always here. It is available. We just have to let go of our excuses. And I know that that's not always easy, but we have to practice. We have to try. We have to find reasons for ourselves to let go of those excuses. And this brings us to the 2 verses from the Bhagavad Gita that I wanted to focus on. In the chapter of the Yoga of Discernment of the 3 kinds of faith, verse 3, faith is in accord with the basic nature of each person. A person is made of faith. One is what one's faith is. So let me read that again. Faith is in accord with the basic nature of each person. A person is made of faith. One is what one's faith is. And so what is your faith? What do you believe in? What do you feel is true? If you feel it is true that there is an infinite consciousness that we are all a part of, that can provide access to clarity, wisdom, if you believe that field is accessible, then you have to ask yourself, what is getting in the way of me accessing that field? And then your work, the Kriya Yoga, the action that you are to undertake, is to find ways to get through it, find ways to rise above it, find ways to let it go. And that's going to be specific to you as an individual. I don't know how you do it. I know how I've done it. And again, I'll restate that. The way that I have done that is there came a point in time when I'd read all of the books I had gone to more retreats than I could count. I had found the guru that I needed personally. And I had a steady meditation practice. And yet in my daily life, while I was experiencing clarified states of awareness in meditation, I would still fall into periods where I'd be sarcastic or pessimistic, or as my dad would say, a smart mouth. I would fall into instances where I would experience depression because I would look around and I would see, the political issues. I would see the state of humanity as it relates to their ability to be healthy. I mean, you name it, I could find a reason to be upset about it. And I had to recognize that this path is an inner path and that I have to do the work to focus on spirit. And so for you, when you go into your life, what I'd recommend doing is being very observant, practicing svadhyaya. Remember that? One of the 3 pillars of Kriya Yoga, which is self-study. And when you get done meditating, or you get done with this time that we're here and you're feeling, inspired and energized after the meditation, then you go into the world, and then this particular thought pattern assails you, or this particular situation makes you say, well, why do I even meditate? This stuff's just going to keep going on. Well, you have to look at that, and you have to step back, and you have to say, well, this is a habit I have. So how can I choose with my God-given imagination, my ability for choice, to think differently about this, to feel contentment, to feel buoyancy, to feel support, even though there are these difficult things going on in the world. And this is also one of the difficulties of the spiritual path, because your spiritual development really should not be defined by the circumstances of the world. We can go into this more once we start exploring things like Samkhya philosophy and so on. But the reason we have these different kinds of philosophy, like Samkhya philosophy and other ways of looking at the evolution of creation, is that they all point out that the world, what you are experiencing, what you are feeling, what you are seeing, what your relationships are like, what your careers are like, it's all based on an experience which grows and decays, where things come together and things fall apart. That is the natural state of experiencing the world through this body, through this form, through this personality. That's what happens. Things break, people get hurt, things heal, people feel great. It just keeps cycling. That's why we have this wheel of samsara, this wheel of repetitive history. It's the same thing over and over again. And the more you keep trying to change the nature of the wheel, the rise and the fall, you're going to keep being distracted from your spiritual path, which is to go inward, to withdraw your awareness from that. And so this is the biggest challenge for a spiritual person, but it is the challenge which allows them to actually realize their spirituality. It is that your inner state, your inner spirit, is not touched by, influenced by anything that goes on in the world. It's not influenced by the rise or the fall. So how can you live in such a way that you are not influenced, you are not troubled by the rise and the fall? Now, again, I'm not encouraging you to be a zombie, or like I was when I was in my teenage years, and I thought what this meant was I'm just stoic all the time and I don't enjoy anything and nothing ever hurts me. Not that. You can still participate and play your role in the drama of the pain and the loss and the joys and the sorrows, but recognizing that you are a spirit. And this comes up in the Bhagavad Gita, in that it tells you the true self is not wetted by water, not burnt by fire, not hurt by a sword, none of this. So the whole purpose of our spiritual path is not to worry about those things which are wetted by water or burnt by fire or killed by a sword. The whole purpose of your spiritual path is to go within and recognize that infinite self, which is untouched by all of this. And so as a spirit kind of coming through this human body, this human mind, that's what we're learning to do. And that's hard because not a whole lot of people in our lives really model that or really do that. But you have to find your way. How can you do that? And that is the ultimate, what's the word? That is the ultimate protest against ignorance, against Maya, against delusion. Think about it. If the world, our experience is built on Maya, delusion, ignorance, well, wouldn't standing up to that, wouldn't the ultimate form of protest, the ultimate form of standing up to that wouldn't that be to say, you know what? Life is going to change. Things are going to come and they're going to go, but I'm going to choose to be established in spirit. And think about that. That is the ultimate form of protest against Maya, delusion, darkness. Because otherwise, anytime that we get pushed off center or pulled away from spirit, anytime something goes wrong or something doesn't go our way, we're essentially saying the world has more power. And every time we affirm or allow ourselves to believe the world has more power, it gets more power. And if we want to have spiritual power, like the power of Anandamoyi Ma, of Ramana Maharshi, of Roy Eugene Davis, of Paramahansa Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahasaya, and so on, we have to give our power to spirit, which is to the unchanging, which is to that ability to say, I choose to be clear and strong right now, no matter what's going on around me. And as I mentioned, that is not easy, but that is part of the Kriya, the action, yoga that we are to do. And so many people don't make progress on their spiritual path, or their spiritual path becomes more so just a path of relaxation, which is fine. They learn to relax very well and fall asleep during meditation, but it doesn't become an empowered spiritual path because they're not recognizing that every situation, circumstance in their life is presenting to them an opportunity to choose spirit over the constant changing phenomena of the world. And that's what I want to encourage you to do over this next month, is kind of reflect upon this. And you don't have to be fanatical. You don't have to try to change everything all at once. You simply have to become aware of this idea and start to work at it, start to chip away at it, start to ask myself, how am I like Ryan in that there are some things that make me sarcastic or depressed or pessimistic, and I need to actually stop. I need to tell myself, knock it off. I need to kind of grab myself and say, let's choose to feel a different way. And this comes down to a feeling response as well. We can't just think our way out of this. You can't just rationalize it. You can't just talk about it in your head until you do a lot of mental gymnastics and you feel content in sort of this inner dialogue you had. You have to actively feel it. You have to actively, in those moments throughout your day when you feel pushed off balance, spiritually speaking, you have to actively take a deep breath and then choose. Even if it's hard, even if it feels like you've got like your muscles real weak and you just aren't doing a very good job and you're kind of shaky about it, choose. I choose contentment here. I choose optimism here. I choose to see good here. And you have to feel it. What would that feel like in your heart if it was actually there? And that's when you're going to make a lot of progress. And the final verse in this chapter, which I thought was really fascinating. I never really noticed it before until I looked at it last night. So this is, again, from the end of chapter 17 in the Bhagavad Gita, the final verse, verse 28. An offering made or a practice performed without faith is called untruth, asat, or asat, and is as nothing in this world or in the hereafter. So I'm going to read this again. I'm going to read Roy's sort of interpretation. An offering made or a practice performed without faith is called asat, or untruth, and is as nothing in this world or in the hereafter. And Roy writes, an offering made or a spiritual practice performed without respect or differential regard is called untruth, and is of no value during the present incarnation or in future circumstances. So this particular verse is a call to be authentic, honest, and engaged with your activity in the world and your spiritual practice. So authenticity, engagement, honesty. A lot of people meditate and they do it because someone told them it was going to be good for them, or they read a book about it, or someone they respected said it was going to be good for them. But they do it and they don't really have faith in it. They don't really believe in the possibility of how it works. And so what this verse is saying is, if you do something like meditate and you don't really believe in it, you don't really have faith in it, it's not doing anything for you. It has no impact on this incarnation or your future. But if you come to meditation with a sense of faith, with a sense of devotion, real devotion, and you engage in that practice, then it impacts you. Then it impacts your consciousness, your chitta. Then it changes you incrementally through time. So what I'm calling you to do is to review and be very honest with yourself about how you approach your spiritual practice. And we're going to go over this in a little more detail, those of you who are going to be participating in the Q&A in another 45 minutes or so. But I was having a discussion with one of the Kriya Yoga Apprenticeship students. He was having difficulty with devotion. And I understand that, because I think there's some confusion about how devotion works. And many people think devotion is like what I saw on the documentary last night with Ananda Moya Ma, where there's like thousands of people chanting and waving things around and crying. They think that's devotion. And that's kind of devotion. I'm not into that, but it's kind of devotion. It's good for a particular kind of person, not necessarily me. But there is a kind of devotion for people who aren't really good at that. And that is just being honest about what you respect and what you're interested in. And as I was discussing this with the Kriya Yoga Apprenticeship student, I described it this way. Whenever I would go to CSA and meet Mr. Davis, or when I would go to the Assisi Institute with Isha Das in Rochester, never did I go there and was I bowing down to Roy or making all kinds of physical gestures. And when I would go to the Assisi Institute, Isha Das is very devotional. It was very different than me. Every time they walk by the altar, they bow. Every time they do something else, they bow. Like there's a lot of like bowing and physical expression of devotion. And I don't feel that. It doesn't do anything for me. But I do feel devotion. When I would be around Mr. Davis, I was just so happy to be in his presence. I just was happy to be there. I can remember driving from West Virginia down to Center for Spiritual Awareness, and it was an 8-hour drive. And I would try to just drive straight through. I didn't stop because I just wanted to get there. I just wanted to be, on the grounds near Mr. Davis. And I can remember one time, you might have heard me tell this story. We were driving through, and my late wife, Melissa, really needed to go to the bathroom. I was like, but we're almost there. And I was young and, again, stupid in relationships. And I was trying to push it till finally she said, I've got to stop. So we stopped, and we ended up stopping about a half hour from CSA. And I was angry about it because I just wanted to get there. And we walked into this grocery store, and she went to the bathroom. And sure enough, who did I see at the grocery store? But Roy Eugene Davis, right there getting flowers. And so I learned to listen to my wife and her bodily needs, and my bodily needs too. But anyway, my devotion wasn't in the sense of dressing up and acting a certain way. It was just a feeling I had. There are certain books that I love. This copy of The Eternal Way, I think I had it since it was first published. It's a hard copy. And I remember when I got it, just holding the book, I felt a sense of, I'm so happy I have this knowledge. And I remember the smell of the book when it was new, the pages, and feeling a sense of love, just smelling the pages of the book. I had another book, Vasista's Yoga. And I loved that book so much that sometimes I would take a nap and I would hold it on my chest. And I would just feel a sense of, I'm so happy I have this book. Well, that's devotion. When I practice meditation, I'm so happy that I've been taught the techniques that I have. And so anytime I'm given the opportunity to do it, when I think of the lineage of gurus, or when I think of the process, I'm not forcing any kind of pious expression of devotion. I just feel great that I have the opportunity. So we have to remember that devotion doesn't have to be an extreme, dramatic, outward show of something. If you have a deep love and respect for what you're engaged in, for the practices that you're doing, for the information that you have available to you, that is devotion. And so if you can remember that when you sit down to practice, or if when you go into the world and you remember what we've talked about today and you think, well, I need to work on this. And you're not going to do a very good job the first few weeks or months, but you have a sense of, I'm glad someone told me about this now so I can work on it. If you have that sense of gratitude and that sense of appreciation, then that empowers the practice. And whether you succeed or fail, it actually spiritually impacts you in a positive way. And then that accumulates slowly through time. So this is how we have to kind of look at our lives and our spiritual lives. And we can't have them on autopilot. And we can't really just, we have to be engaged in it. We have to do the Kriya, the actions. We have to do the Kriya Yoga ourselves. And our meditation, our implementation of the yamas and niyamas, our study of sacred scriptures, all of that is support for how we live our lives, because how we live our lives and how we are able to choose to stay focused on spirit, on the infinite, on the self, that is the real expression of self-realization. And then you begin to understand and recognize, as I mentioned, what Anandamoy recognized, what Roy Eugene Davis recognized, what Yogananda recognized, Ramana Maharshi, and so on. And it's a choice, and it's a choice that has to be made so many times that it eventually becomes natural. Everything is providing momentum, energy, direction towards that realization, that reality, that experience. So look at your life in this way and make it something that you want to do, that you have devotion for, that you're not doing just because it's good for you, or someone told you you're a bad person and you believe them, and so you're trying to make up for it, or you see all the pain and suffering in the world. The pain and suffering is always going to be there, because as long as you have nature, which is constant change, there's going to be a coming together, which people typically enjoy, and there's going to be a falling apart, which people typically don't enjoy. But it's just our labeling of this process that makes it difficult, but it's always happening. So let go of that and recognize, how can I choose spirit despite all the changes that I see? Because the change is natural. The change is natural. Okay, so with that, let's take some time to meditate together. And we'll probably go to about for another 25 to 30 minutes. So whatever is on your mind, whatever you're thinking about, for now, just let it go. It's within your consciousness. The deeper part of you will take what it needs from this discussion, and you can reflect upon it after we get done meditating today. Now's the time to close your eyes, focus on your body, feel, become grounded in this present moment experience through the body, through the breath. Honor and acknowledge this field of spirit, which really is surrounding every cell, every atom. It permeates your mind and your heart. It is everywhere present. So consciously choose. You might not know what it feels like, but consciously give yourself permission. What would it feel like if I could sense this field? And let go of whatever aches and pains might be in the body, or whatever distractions might be in the mind. Just choose this abstract field of presence. Once again, let's honor and acknowledge the teacher, representative gurus of this Kriya Yoga tradition. Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahasaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Roy Eugene Davis. Knowing that you are a part of their field of awareness just by participating in this practice. And so therefore, you are supported by this field of awareness. And let's meditate today together using chanting through the chakras, as this is a really important meditation technique. So bring your attention down to the root chakra, where you conceive or imagine the root chakra to be. And the way for this practice to work most effectively is to really get engaged in the feeling of it. Not just the mental chanting, but the feeling. So wherever in your physical body you feel the root chakra, I feel as though I'm sitting on it. Become aware of the pressure of gravity in that area, the warmth or the temperature within the root chakra. Physically feel whatever you can. Increase your sensitivity in that area. And mentally chant the syllable Om. Om, 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 as though it's resonating, pulsing within the field of this physical sensation. Now lift your awareness up to the second chakra. I tend to feel this just above the genital region and pubic bone, higher up on the sacrum. I become aware of whatever the temperature and sensation within my body in that area. I observe it. This is important. You have to feel the vibration. And in the beginning, that can be physical, just a physical sensation. Feel the awareness on the second chakra and mentally chant Om, 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 as though it's pulsing, resonating within the second chakra. Lift your awareness up into the third chakra. I feel this at the level of the navel, but inward, into my abdomen. So I feel my back in that area. I feel the level of my navel, and I feel the organs and the flesh within my abdomen. And so you notice any temperature, sensations, or even digestion going on. Feel the physical sensations. This helps you to experience the vibration of the chakra. Chanting Om, 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 Om. Mentally, of course. And lift your awareness up to the heart chakra. I feel this at the level of my breastbone, also between my shoulder blades. As I feel my lungs expand, I feel it there. So bring your sensation, your sensitivity, increase your sensitivity to the area of the chest and the upper back. And here mentally chant Om, 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 Om. Continuously feeling the area, feeling it resonating, pulsing within the heart chakra. And lift your attention up into the throat. And it's not just the throat. You would feel where the neck meets the shoulders and up to where the neck connects with the top of the skull and your bottom of your jaw. Feel all of that area. Physically note it. And it doesn't matter if it feels good or bad or itchy or sore. The point of it is just to observe it. Bring more sensitivity through the nervous system to the chakra space. Observe and breathe, being at peace, chanting Om, 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 Om. As I mentioned, this is a very important practice. And the most important part of it is to learn to physically feel the areas, because how do you expect to feel the subtle quality of prana and energy within the spinal pathway if you can't even feel the physical sensations? So developing more body awareness through this practice will give you a greater ability to perceive the flow of prana, of ecstatic energy within the spinal pathway. So now lift your awareness up into the brain. There are two glands, the pineal and the pituitary gland, often associated with the two petals of the chakra. So feel the space between your eyebrows, but then pull your awareness back inward a little bit, as if you're moving more closely to the center of your brain. And imagine if you could feel that area, pressure, temperature, sensation, just observing it. Feeling the sixth chakra area and mentally chanting Om, 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 as though it's resonating and pulsing within this space of the sixth chakra. And then imagine and feel that your awareness is moving up to the crown of your head, the very top of your skull. The very, very top of your skull. Feel that point. Imagine that there is maybe an inlet of light or energy kind of flowing into the skull at the very top. Feeling your hair up there. If you don't have hair, feeling the atmosphere against your skin. Feeling the tightness of the skin against the skull. and even maybe the pressure of the skull bones. Do whatever it takes to bring your physical sensation to the crown, and mentally chant Om, 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 Om. And there is no correct feeling when you observe these areas because all of our bodies are different. So whatever feeling you can perceive, you can be sensitive to, feel it there. And flow your awareness back down to the spiritual eye center, feeling the center between your eyebrows and a little bit back into your brain, behind your eyes, between your eyes, mentally chanting Om. Bringing your awareness back down to the fifth chakra in the throat, mentally chanting Om. Down into the heart, the breastbone between the shoulder blades, mentally chanting Om. Down into the belly, the third chakra, the area of our digestive fire and the heat within the body, at the belly button, the navel, but into the abdomen, mentally chanting Om. Down into the second chakra, just above the pubic bone, inward in the body, in the center of the body, feeling the area physically, chanting Om, second chakra. Down to the root chakra, first chakra, feeling the area, mentally chanting Om. And now as we continue this practice up through the chakras, we want to allow our sensitivity to become a little more subtle. So your awareness is on the first chakra. You're mentally chanting Om. Now, the physical sensation that you have, try to imagine a subtler energy there. Maybe it's a subtler warmth or even a electrical feeling or a pulsing or a tingling sensation. Just see if you can notice a subtler flow of awareness within that root chakra behind the physical sensation. It might come and it might go and it might be slippery, but keep being curious, feeling a little more deeply, as if relaxing into a more energetic sensation, more warmth, more electricity, less pressure and mass. Pull your awareness up into the second chakra, chanting Om in your mind, Om, 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 feeling that space between your hips, just above your genitals and your bladder, and just noticing any kind of pulsation or energy or warmth that's a little subtler than the physical. Might even just feel weird. That's okay. Observe it if you can. And lift your attention up into the third chakra, deep within your belly at the level of your navel. And again, at first, you might feel the movement of your organs and digestion, or the heat within your belly, or the strength within your mid-back. See if you can sense, as though your awareness is becoming more subtle, a deeper warmth, a deeper electricity or pulsation. Feel the breath becoming more subtle, as if you can feel your awareness withdrawing into the spinal pathway, into this sensitivity. And lift your awareness now up into the heart chakra, between your shoulder blades, the breastbone, but deep in the chest. At first, you feel the power and the movement of the breath as the air and the prana flows in and lifts the chest and lets it fall back down. But then with your greater sensitivity, listen to a subtler feeling within the chest. It could be a quivering, or as I've said, a deeper sense of warmth, movement, chanting Om at the fourth chakra. And lift your awareness up into the throat, feeling the physical structure, the strength of the neck, keeping the head upright, sensation of the skin, and even when you swallow, the movement of swallowing. Chanting Om. Be curious if you can sense a subtler movement, a subtler quality behind the physical within the fifth chakra. And lift your awareness up now to the sixth chakra, to the space between the eyebrows and between the eyes, back into the brain, and just feeling a spaciousness, a temperature, pressure, or sensations of that physical aspect of the body in the skull. Chanting Om at the sixth chakra, being curious about a deeper sensitivity, a lighter energy, a warmth beyond the physical within the sixth chakra as you chant Om. And flowing attention up into the crown, the very top of the head, feeling the space where your hair or lack of hair is, feeling the pressure of the skull bones and the movement of the air against your skin, chanting Om at the crown. Be curious if you can feel a subtler sensation, a subtler energy, a subtler kind of temperature beyond the physical at the level of the crown. With your eyes closed, you're gazing slightly upwards without strain. You might even notice images or light within the mind's eye as you feel the crown chakra chanting Om. And now maintaining your awareness at the crown, keep some awareness up there. But then let your attention flow back down through your body, through your face, through the back of your skull, your neck, your shoulders, down into your upper arms, your elbows, your hands, the chest, the belly, the hips, the knees, down to the feet. So it's as if you are anchored at the crown, but your awareness is flowing back through the rest of your nervous system and physical body. Know that what you are feeling is the energy of spirit within the physical form. And we'll chant Om once together to conclude this meditation session. Peace. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. It was wonderful to have time to talk with you and also to meditate together. And again, all of you who are Patreon members and Kriya Yoga Apprenticeship members and Kriya Yoga Discipleship Course students, thank you so much for all that you do. If you do know anyone who wants to participate in these monthly gatherings, and you get the newsletter, because that's where I usually send the login information for, feel free to share that newsletter with them. Or you can have them email me and I can add that to the news. I can add their name to the newsletter. A good email is info@kriyayogaonline.com. info@kriyayogaonline.com. Otherwise, everybody stay in touch. I'll see you all soon. And if not very soon, then in another month's time. So take care.